Well, there we go. We were this is Nancy Neithercut here with Bedside Manor and Howard Chance. I'm coming back after a long hiatus of silence to try to heal my mouth, which is a work in progress. Um, but I'm glad to be back. I'm so glad to see you, Nancy. And
It's wonderful to see you.
I just thank you so much for your encouragement and for all my friends at Exploding Rainbows. They really helped me through a tough time, and still just dealing with it and still kind of recovering, but I couldn't help myself. I had to push it a little bit and see how far I've come with the illness, and then and have a talk with you um, about so many things. One thing in particular, what I'm really interested in is how we were talking the last couple of times about your classes and your dietary business that you're going to get into, and you were talking about clients, and I was wondering if you could expand on that because I might have something to learn here about this. I might have a problem with my diet, and maybe if I could learn something from you, I could heal a little better.
Yeah, well, no matter what you have, if you heal the body through proper diet, then I mean, even if you have like a chronic condition, things can go away, like type 2 diabetes and high blood pressure. You can reverse heart disease. You can do a lot with diet. But even if you have, say, you have an autoimmune disease, you can usually at least stop it, if not reverse it, and then prevent more autoimmune diseases from coming. So there's a lot you can do with diet. I mean, I healed myself of breast cancer through diet, so
Really?
kind of a fan. Yeah.
Can you expand? Can you expand on that? That's amazing.
Well, we were already vegetarians, and I got breast cancer in 2001. And so all I did was give up dairy, and then the tumor just shrunk almost visibly quite fast.
Really?
Because I didn't know about dairy. So I've been taking, in the early 80s, I studied all the chemistry and biochemistry, anatomy, physiology, everything in college, but I never finished, And so I've just gone back the last few years and taking lots of classes to finish so I can become a health educator, certified health educator. So I got to figure out what to call myself, Nancy the health nut or just a nut.
Yeah, that's good.
So now I'm taking like a business class now to figure out how to set it up. And so, yeah, it's really because it's been my passion for a long, long time. And I'm taking a lot of classes, like I've taken a cardiovascular class now with the same group I took a diabetes class with last fall. And there are a lot of doctors and other health professionals in the class. And so they ask real good questions, so it's really, it's a lot of fun. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Well, I mean, you stay so svelte. I mean, yeah, is it that you don't eat much, or is it?
Oh no, I eat a lot. I eat 4 or 5 times a day.
What do you eat? Like, do you cook
plants?
Or do you eat plants?
I eat plants. Potatoes, rice, corn, beans, all vegetables, all fruits. I don't eat any high fat plants personally. You can, but I don't, because the fat you eat is the fat you wear.
I think
and I like being slim. I love being slim, and I lift weights. I'm almost 62, and because I love being strong and slim and healthy and not having breast cancer. Pretty good one.
That's a pretty big seller. Yeah.
That's a pretty good one. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Well, I think Tesla said something about that. That eating plants or eating light, because that's all plants are. Is they eat light to survive, and kind of like our breathing in light, breathing in oxygen for a human. And if you eat flesh, you're eating death. You eat the death of an animal. So if you're eating flesh, you eat death, and if you eat plants, you're eating light. And
well, there's not a lot of evidence that you can't have some meat You know, dairy is obviously poison, but there's no evidence that you can't have 2 or 3 servings of wild caught fish or organic meat a week. You know, because in populations that are long lived and healthy, they do have small amounts. But for some people, because of the way the gut bugs affect the brain and your taste, it's just a lot easier to give it up because your brain will adapt. You know, the neural adaptation. It takes about 4 months for a lot of people, but your brain adapts, you know, and pretty soon all this food that you know suddenly tastes really good because even like a fruit fly can change its diet because obviously as humans we've had to change our diets. So yeah.
Yeah, I saw that I think it's the longest living people in the world. It's some little island off of Greece, and little Greek island, and they have no processed food whatsoever. They you know, it's just fruits and vegetables that they grow on the island, and every month or so, a family might roast a goat or something. But
yeah,
you know,
or if you just, it's
days,
the blue zones. And if you look at their lifestyles, there's a lot more than just diet to their health.
yeah,
There's
yeah,
social connections,
right.
there's exercise, there's sunlight. I mean, there's so much, you know, it's not because what are we? Psychosocial physical beings, right? So there's a lot more to it. So it's not like health isn't just about the absence of disease, right? Health is about feeling good and being able to do the things that you want to do. So health as a whole is all encompassing, you know, there's nothing left out. I mean, loneliness, I mean, people can literally die of loneliness, really. So
they pointed that out that these people all it had nothing to do with age as far as you know, when they have a party or something, the old sit with the young, and you know the people that have young children bring their children over to their grandparents or their great grandparents or their great great grandparents who light up because they get to take care of the children, and they all live together very communally.
yeah,
And
yeah,
it's something of a, you know, there's no teenager table and then you know,
no,
20 something table, you know, and then senior table, you keep mom over in the corner, you know, none of that, you know, everybody dances
yeah.
together and lives together.
Well, you know, there's a lot to be said for love, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot to be said for love. And I love loving you, and isn't this wonderful?
It is totally wonderful. I had
Yeah.
another stammering attempt at talking about enlightenment and what is or is not is yesterday. Would you like to try to talk about what is love, for example? What is love to Nancy?
Love is the absence of separation.
Mm. Mm-mm.
Um, and feeling that feels like love, but not like the love that I thought of before, because there's no need, because there is no other. Love is this without other. Love knows itself. There's no knowing what love is, right? Because
Right.
you can't get outside of it to look back.
Knowing it's a
Love
part
is,
of it.
yeah, it's unavoidable, but it's ungraspable. It's
Right.
unreachable because love is all and everything. No separation, no outside, no inside. Love is what this feels like when the belief and feeling of separation are gone. It feels like love pouring into love. It's so beautiful.
So
Yeah.
I thought of one yesterday that I thought was pretty nice. It's like trying to describe a bird flying by the heart of the bird, or you're trying to describe the heart of the bird by the soaring that it does in the air, and it's you cannot have one without the other, and they're just in each other. The soaring, the heart, you know, it's just impossible to have one without the other. Yet, you know, they're not separate.
Yeah. Yeah. When there's belief in things, then there's belief in things separated by space, belief in separate events divided by time. that these words actually capture a bite, this stream of sensual perception, right? This sensuousness, this lushness, this richness of life, simultaneously blooming and wilting, never actually forming a thing. Nothing can be grasped. There's no outside. There's never anything. There's never any solidity. There isn't even any liquidity, but it feels liquid somehow. It feels like liquid love. Yeah, and I use that a lot in my poetry, like above a bird, the wingtips, creating little whirlpools of air under the tips of their feathers, you know, and then dissolving into sky, the whirlpools dissolving into sky, sky dissolves into sky, you know, the flight, it's always ungraspable, and that's what you fear so much before, you know. It's like, oh, I know this is magic. I know this is magic. And so if there's a belief in me separate from the magic, then there's a longing to grasp the magic of life, of love, of beauty. There's this longing. I've got to have it because I'm going to die, and I don't want to die. I want to be in this. I want to find love. I want to find beauty. I want to find peace. But those are really just words, ideas, descriptions for something that is believed to be on the other side, like heaven is on the other side, but there is no other side, and there never was. There was never anyone lacking.
Well, it's like the wanting love is love, and then the actual final experience of lack of separation and love is also love, and I mean, it's all love. You know, there is no separation between the quote unquote turmoil reaching to the crescendo, coming around again, and going back over and through some of these magic moments. It's all love. It's the roller coaster itself.
Beautiful.
The ride. Yeah, it's the up and down, loop de loop, corkscrew craziness of it all. You know. And, yeah. The funny thing.
It's like a Mobius strip, right?
Right.
But the Mobius strip breaks, and then the pattern falls off the paper, and then the paper dissolves.
Yeah. And that becomes what you're trying to explain. Yeah. There's absolutely no way to articulate it, is there? Accurate.
No. The guard dogs at the gates of heaven is the belief in a heaven, in another side, the belief in this imaginary other. And it's obvious, right? There's no other, you know. There's no next. There's no better or worse. You know, it's so obvious. And yet, you know, how many decades was I looking for this imaginary other, you know, when one day I would like dance in golden forever, you know, or something. I don't know what I wanted, but it was something. There was something to get, you know, and there is nothing to get, no one to get it, nothing other, not even of this.
Well, and the funny thing is that there seems to be an awakening. There's a point, or at least like the moment of the switch or enlightenment or whatever, however you want to characterize that character having a switch of perception, and this moment where it's almost like once the genie gets out of the bottle, there's no putting the genie back, and so it's also that, even going that far to say that there is no separation, there also is this moment where there is no going back, and yet you just realize you've never moved, so to speak. You know, there is nothing moving at all. You know, it just appears that way. It seems like there is this moment where you have a lack of separation and experience that love, that whatever, you know, however you want to characterize that moment, but that moment never stops. It seems you can never go back to thinking in terms of separation as it being actual.
No, there is no back. Yeah. But when this first happened, you know, because it's like the blinders come off. Your eyes are licked clean of hope and fear and need, you know. And I thought, gosh, is this a special state that I read about, you know, and all the shit I was reading? Is this something special, you know? And I thought I couldn't imagine the blinders coming back, and they never have.
And see, that's the funny paradox of how of trying to talk about this kind of thing, because in talking about the lack of separation and love being the realization that there is no before or after, it's punctuated with the story of a switch or an enlightenment type of story. And so the funny thing is the duplicity of even that message is in fact duplicity. The duplicity of a lack of duplicity message is dualistic, and it's impossible not to be that contradictory. You know, it's just literally words mean nothing, and it's not something what we're talking about can't be learned in a linear way, because it's not linear. It's just not.
There are no lines.
Yeah, I mean, it's just not linear. There's no separation, and it's impossible to make that apparent. It just, in a funny way, realized that there is no realization in a way.
Yeah, because the story of enlightenment, you know, is still a story, right?
Yeah.
It's I do still like poetry, obviously, because
Oh yeah.
poetry can flip the mind, and you're a beautiful poet too.
Well, I wrote I finally wrote that I've been meaning to write a just a what I thought of your book. I put it in on the back of the reviews, and I did that yesterday.
Oh, thank you.
And yeah, I started, and I just started. So I'd read a little bit of your book yesterday, and I was like, I gotta write that review. So I went back there, and what I wrote, I had no idea how that was gonna come out, and they're reviewing it now. I don't know if they've approved it or not, but it just came out so odd. I had to. It was beautiful, but it was like,
Cool.
wow, I didn't even know I had that in me, you know. And so I was like, it's one of those things where the pen kind of wrote it, and now I'm kind of interested to see what it's going to look like when I read it again, because it was one of those.
You can edit it if you want to add or subtract.
Okay,
so
yeah,
you can't edit them. I love your blog. I mean, your website's really beautiful too.
Well, thank you so much.
It's gorgeous.
I couldn't have done that without Andrew Kirschbaum.
He's gonna help me make my health website.
Really, I recommend him for sure. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he's a smart and a beautiful man.
Yeah, he's very he definitely, like, once you get him focused on what you want to do, like, he's busy and everything, but once everybody gets all their stuff together, and once he starts moving, it's like, oh wow, okay, now I see why you want. Yeah, so many different things like lined up in order, and then once everything's kind of lined up, then you let them, but then
oh, you froze.
okay, now he can. Well, once he has the general information of what you want, and you make the few basic choices, and just let him run with it, he'll come up with all kinds of different things to choose from. It's really beautiful to work with him. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
How long are you walking in your park right now? You doing your normal track?
No, I'm kind of trying to stay where there's a good signal.
I was wondering, because we haven't had a bad signal the whole time.
Yeah, I'm trying to kind of stay right here. I think it's good. So, and it's a calm day too. Monday aren't a lot of tourists. So.
When do you think you're going to start doing that the health food site?
Oh, I don't know. I have to first. I have to become certified. I've got to get my certification, and then I always got to figure out what I want to do, what I'm going to charge. and what I'm going to call myself, Nancy the Health Nut, no, or the Nut.
Yeah. Nuts by
Yeah.
Nancy. Nancy goes nuts.
Or bananas. That'd be more like me.
Yeah. Peanut butter and banana
I've actually helped a lot of people on Facebook with some of my friends. I've helped some people get rid of diabetes and lose weight and do a lot of that. Just, but there's so much more, but it's for some people, they just kind of have to hear why whatever happened to them. Like, what's the pathway of this that leading to this to leading to this? And then so they understand why they have type 2 diabetes. And then for this, a lot of people, it's just a matter of explaining that and how they can change their diet. And they got to stay in touch with their doctor too, because their need for medication drops really fast.
What do you think of what do you think of like I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead, please. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So I have helped a lot of people and talked to a lot of people casually. So I don't know when I'll go officially into business, but one of these days.
Well, what do you think of like brown sugar? Brown sugar.
Well, any sugar. I wouldn't eat any refined sugar. But if you want to put a little brown sugar on your oatmeal, it's okay.
So you like oatmeal?
Oh yeah. I was talking to someone, talking to a friend who does this already, and all he could get this woman to do, who weighed 350 pounds, was to just switch to eating oatmeal for breakfast. And he says, I don't care what you put on it. I don't care if you put chocolate chips or whatever. And she lost 100 pounds, but and the rest of her diet was burgers and, just total crap. So, I mean, I thought that was pretty wild, because he said he couldn't get her to eat any plants. She didn't want to eat any plants except for maybe ketchup on her hamburger. So he said, well, just try eating oatmeal every morning. Well, I thought that was pretty significant. Yeah, that's a lot of weight.
That is a lot of weight. I've done that twice in my life, lost 100 pounds, actually 3 times. I've fluctuated that much. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I was in my late teens, about the time I was 20 or something. I weighed probably 60 pounds more than I do now.
Really?
So I've been there.
Well,
I know what it's like.
On the other side of things, I knew a anorexic girl that all she would eat, like, and I mean like a bite of a chocolate bar every 3 days or so. And her mother was giving her so much grief about eating the chocolate. And I said, and I was proud because I took her to a doctor, and the doctor said, when she said, I eat like a couple squares of a Hershey bar every 3 days or so. And her mother said, you're not supposed to do that. And the doctor said, she can eat whatever she wants, And I thought that was brilliant, because if somebody's problem is that they don't eat at all, then don't give them crap about what they do eat. I mean, if it's 2 squares of chocolate every 3 days, I don't think, it really matters what you're eating.
That's really sad.
Yeah, it really is. It really was. Yeah.
It's like I had a friend going into social work and taking a lot of psychology classes 40 years ago or whatever. And he was working with a kid who was washing his hands all the time. And the father kept saying, you're wasting water, not realizing that the poor kid had a compulsion disorder and, needed help. So yeah, that is really sad. Yeah, there's a lot of love.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All of these different little troubles that we have are actually it's just these beautiful, painful stories. We seem to gravitate around like campfires, sad stories.
Well, what would we be without our broken hearts, right?
Right.
I would never want to close off a heart. Yeah. Although I'm taking a cardiovascular disease course now, so.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
Well, isn't it the most beautiful stories that that humans have are the ones where when things are at their worst, a human shows their best quality. When things are at their ugliest, something just lovely comes of it. And it's always those kind of binary things. Those are the most tragic stories when everything is perfect and then something tragic happens. So it's always that broken heart story that
Mhm.
coming so close to
We
the perfect. Yeah.
we recognize each other.
Yeah.
We
In that heartbreak.
recognize our humanness. That's how we recognize each other. And even just, without a tragic story, everyone feels the great aloneness. And so in that, we are this brokenhearted beauty, and we share that. And you can see it in everyone's eyes, and everyone is so fucking beautiful. Everyone.
Have you ever had a voice speak to you that's not didn't seem to be yours?
Well, when thought switches to music, it's usually a song I didn't write. you know.
Right. Well, what I'm saying is that at times, and yeah, I know that it's weird, and I know that it's kind of a trap. It's what I see to be actual, in that my life appears to be a conversation. It's almost like a discussion, in that um,
Uh-oh, you're freezing.
uh, in the
Okay.
am I still freezing?
No,
Well,
you're
in the
good.
in the weirdest way, there seems to be these I don't know, some people call it synchronicity, some people call it just the weirdest things happen where you're almost like uh talking to yourself in a weird way. So a voice happens, and I don't know really where I'm going with this, but it's the honest truth. On occasion, I'll hear a voice that doesn't seem to be mine, and something occurs that seems to verify that kind of discussion. And so something is materialized from that. And I'm not saying that there is a God or there is a something other than myself. I am saying that I am in a weird way having a discussion with that unattainable dual side. And it's not how should I say this? In the duality of it is the synchronicity of a singularity, and that it's the same thing with um, the con the tragic the tragedy of the broken heart in the midst of true love, or the broken heart in the midst of agony and pain. There is a flower growing out of the shit. That kind of thing. Both of those stories seem to wrap up our lives. That's what we seem to be as humans. The flower going out of the dung, and the tragedy narrowly averted. Through love vanquished at just the wrong time. So these epic tales that of duality seem to be somehow just telling it. It's like telling itself. You know what I mean? And I almost seem to be just a part of the telling. It's just odd, that like I communicate within that parameter of a story telling itself to other characters in my own perception. So I know that it's an odd thing to try to communicate, but it happens. I don't know.
Do
I don't
you
know how.
mean like you're like one? Do you mean like you're one voice in a chorus?
Yeah,
Kind
I
of.
am, of course. Yes, I mean, yeah, I'm just another character in the story of, a guy that is seeing the story from a single vantage point. Like I'm in a story telling of a character that sees object subject from one particular outlet. So, that's the name of the story, and yet the story of that the singular story tells of characters even within the parameters of my own perception, whether they be as you and I seem to be humans in time and space, and or things that are not quite of that realm of awakening, dreaming, or just being. And so something other than uh, the character's story initiates conversation within the parameter of what seems to be his life. So, for example, I don't think of something that I think of something that I haven't thought about for 30 years. And all of a sudden I was like, yeah, I remember that, that blanket or that golf club. And then all of a sudden I'm walking through my garage and the blanket falls on my head. And I hadn't
Oh,
thought about
okay.
that blanket for 18 years. And I thought about it yesterday. And then all of a sudden the thing falls out of the garage sky and lands on my head. How, what is that about? You know what I mean?
Okay, I know what you mean. Here's what I would have noticed is that there's always thought, or almost all the time there's thought, but you only remember it when there's something that seems to occur like that. Like when you think about it, thought will tell a million stories of what's going to happen next, tomorrow, the next day, whatever, right? That's thought's job. And so if it does happen, you'll go, oh, I predicted that or something. But in reality, you might have gone all kinds of, so anyway, that's how I would explain it. But
Well, that's how it's like, for example, say you think, or you had a dream last night. Mud's gonna fall down the hill behind my house and come through my living room. And then the next thing you know, you wake up and you hear rumbling and you go, and it's like, and here comes the mud right through your door, and it comes right through. Oh my God, I'm psychic. But a mathematician would say, well, people have an average of 3 dreams a night. And let's just say 2. There's 7 billion people. That's 14 billion dreams in a 24-hour span. It's just a matter of odds that somebody would dream something that would happen in that
yeah,
in that respect. So it's not that you're
yeah.
psychic; it's just the odds. It's just people dream, and sometimes mud falls down hills.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Or
But
maybe maybe the mountain was stirring deep groans while you were sleeping and your body picked it up, you know. Maybe there's a lot more to it than that. Maybe there was because the hill had to crack first, or the rain had to seep in, or so maybe because, for example, this is really interesting. You will reach for an apple that has 10 calories a bite versus an apple that has 9 calories a bite. Now, how do you know that? You don't know that, but that's just how we evolved,
right.
So like maybe your body picked up the rumblings of the mountain, and then your brain painted it into a picture, and then the next day the mountain slid through your living room door,
Mhm.
and hopefully you got out of the way.
Well, then there's other things like I mean, well, there's other things that just kind of happen, but I totally understand what you mean and what you're saying. I just think that is also part of the story of of something that can't be known. For example, if somebody hears a voice telling them to do something, they get up and they do it, and something, like a meteor falls on their pillow right where their head was, stuff like that can happen, or people say it does happen. I'm just curious. Do
And
you
there's a lot
ever?
of people, the meteor just hits them right on the head too.
Yeah, yeah.
there's a
On the
there's a
blanket.
the town next to here is called Rockville. And
Right.
several years ago, a giant boulder as big as a trailer, an RV or something, fell, and the guy was sleeping, and it landed about 6 inches from his head. Okay. Are you frozen?
No,
Oh,
I'm
can
not
you hear
thinking. I'm
me?
not. Yeah,
Okay.
a
And
guy
so,
in a rock.
wow, right. The rock fell, landed about 6 inches from his head. The rock was bigger than his house. Okay. A few years later, a couple further down the street was taking their afternoon nap, and the same size rock fell right on their house, and they didn't make it. So it can happen either way.
Oh, absolutely. Oh yeah. Oh, it does. It does happen either way all the time. I don't know.
I think the part of the preciousness is knowing that there is no next and that you will die. The preciousness of every hello, the preciousness of every I love you, the preciousness of it all. You know, the gem, the sparkle, the zing, this aliveness without other is utterly precious and utterly magical. And there's no magician, you know, it just does it by itself. And I think that's part of the big ball that, you know, it's so obvious. It's so wow, because it's just wow.
So you
And it
believe
is
that
precious.
so you do believe that you die.
Well, the body dies. I am not.
So you believe you're
Yeah.
alive. So are
Well,
you
there
alive?
is no me.
Well, that's what I'm saying. What is the death of the character? Is kind of what I'm getting at.
Oh,
I'm
the
trying
end
to
of
come.
this.
I'm trying
The
to
end
come
of
up
the
with
story.
interesting things. I'm trying to come up with interesting things.
The story will end. However, you know, in the story, there might be other people telling stories about me until their stories end.
Well,
Yeah.
for example, when I read a book, and a character dies in a book, or the book ends, those characters kind of stay alive, within my memory of the story. Now, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
saying about, I don't believe in any kind of deity. I think it's not because I think it's irrelevant. A deity
Yes.
or no deity, it's not, it's the wrong,
Right.
question.
Well, I would just say this is that we are stories, right?
Right.
And so in sharing our stories in the shared dream of separation with the same words, because I've spoken to a lot of people recently who've had loved ones die, you know, and I'll just say, well, who, you know, tell me about that person, or who was that person, you know, and all there is stories. They can share stories about things they did together, or stories about what that person told them, or other people told them about that person. And it's just description. And that's all we are. So in sharing stories, we literally become each other.
Right.
We are each other. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
I can't even.
I can't erase you from me. It's impossible because we are each other.
Well, say if you, if you, and on the flip side of that, if I was at my own funeral speaking, I couldn't even explain who I was. So the people that are up there talking about who I am, who Howard was, this kind of person or that kind of person, is I don't even know what I am. So
There's nothing there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So but I in that way, like, I don't have a definition for a thing or not a thing. Like, a thing or no thing to me is, it doesn't have anything to do with what appears to be happening, not happening. And so, and it sounds insane, but it is the story of people that think that they're in a reality. And what is, you know how do you tell a character in a story that, no, you're just a story, but this is even the caveat is, the story doesn't seem to come from any place. It doesn't have an author or a writer. It doesn't have, or a reader even. You're just in a story that has its own idea of a reality, but it doesn't come from anywhere. I mean, so it's impossible to actually talk about, or to uh, prove. As the only thing that you can prove is that nothing is provable. The only thing that you can show is that there
It's
is.
like have you ever just watched a clear sky and then you watch clouds form?
Okay,
And then pretty soon
you froze for a
they
second
grow
there.
into these. Oh, it's like watching a clear sky and then all these clouds form and they form into dragons, and pretty soon there's sky riding, and then it just dissolves. Sky written with sky. wind sings wind songs. I mean, it's just, that's why I like poetry, because there's people who want to talk to me a lot of times, you know, they're in a lot of pain. They're looking for this imaginary other. Or maybe they want to see that their loved one who died recently is just a story. But there's no pointing this out, because this, what we talk about, enlightenment, liberation, or whatever, is a story too. And it doesn't happen to you. It doesn't happen to you. You were never going to know this. It's
a scenario within the parameters of the reality of the story.
Right. So, I mean, I think what I do with people, I just kind of blindfold them and turn them around and tell them to pin the tail on the donkey, but I don't give them a pin or a tail or a donkey.
Right. Well, and as you were talking, I was realizing, you know, the sky, the clouds, you know, and all the pictures and this and that. You can go internally as externally with that, as far as like subject object, removing the barrier of either subject or object, and that there's no process of subject or object. There's just the story of a character processing something other than itself. And so what I like to think about is the eternity or the infinite within, and the infinite cosmos, or space outside, as being the same story. It's the same, you know, it's just a nuance to the character, that it is separate, as in inside and outside, subject and object.
Yep.
But in reality, it is an infinite, you know, marker that just, you could pass the subject object in any you know, at any place.
It's infinitely intimate and intimately infinite.
That's a good one. And it is, and there's no place to actually say that, you know, even if you are looking at yourself as a separate individual looking at a sky, you know, in an infinite, because you pull back and you see strands of galaxies, made super galaxies, and then clusters of galaxies and super clusters of galaxies, and that is just all clouds of things that you can make shapes out of. And you go internally into these, you know, this internal like picture show that has absolutely no end. And it's similar in that, where does the subject object process even occur? And it really doesn't, other than the story of a character that thinks it's a separate individual looking at the cosmos outside of itself. So it's quite beautiful, actually.
It is. It's like when this was happening, it felt like beliefs were like bubbles, and there was a tension, but the inside space was the same as the outside space, and everything just kept popping and popping and popping. But like a soap bubble has that beautiful rainbow iridescence, right? And so it's like the bubble pops, but there's still this rainbow iridescence. You know, it's substanceless. It's like colors slide out of the rainbow, you know.
Right. Yeah. And that's true. The lines between colors blur, then the colors blur, then there are no colors. There are no lines, there are no colors, there's nothing. I mean, it's literally nothing. And it's impossible to describe colorlessness, because everything, even black is a color, white is a color, literally no color. Like, it's not clear because there is no thing, and it's impossible to describe that. I mean,
yeah, it's just like people will say it's timeless, but there's really no time or non-time.
Or non-time,
you know,
right? Yeah.
Right.
It's kind of like being and not being. If we cannot, there is no example of not being, so there's no being. So the reality of it is that this is the story of beings being before they, they come from not being. They're a state of being, and they're going to go to a not being again. However, we have no example of a not being. There is no zero, and zero, for example,
It's a
would be in.
placeholder.
Yeah. So it literally is a story about uh, colors that kind of
Yeah.
don't
And
exist.
how beautiful these how beautiful are rainbow stories. How
Yeah.
beautiful. Yeah, it's like the nothing all and everything never actually arises, but it seems to appear. It doesn't come from somewhere and go somewhere. It just simply simultaneously appears, seems to appear and disappear at the same time.
See, now
And
I think you're right. I think that's exactly what simultaneity.
yeah, yeah, but there is no time or timelessness, no
Right.
movement or non-movement, no solidity or liquidity, no transparency. So not even nothing. What does that mean?
Right.
What is me? Yeah, what could how could any words have meaning if meaning is a word?
Right. So it's like the polar opposite of things. Things seem to go in a cycle, rolling on polar opposites, being and not being. All right. So you have these forces of white and black, okay, good and evil, uh, being and beings, all and on and on. Okay, but it's not a cycle of one and another rolling in a succession of events in a time. It's everything and nothing simultaneously. It is all of those what appear to be polar opposites actually being the same thing, and
Mm-hmm.
and equaling no thing in particular. It's not like a thing, and there is a thing and there's not a thing. Okay,
Right.
so you have these
Yeah.
polar opposites. Well, it is everything and nothing simultaneously.
Yep.
They're not a succession of events rolling like a magnetic, positive, negative, creating a field. No, they're literally both positive and negative. And
Mm-hmm.
it's just
The
it's
dream of separation and the dream of enlightenment are not separate.
thank you.
It's
Yeah.
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's why I always say there are no things or non-things. Because if I say there are no things, then people think, oh, there's a lack of things. There's no lack of
Right.
things. There's just no
Right.
things or non-things. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. There is no time
Yeah,
or
we get
space.
each other, baby. We get each
Yeah.
other.
Yeah. There is no time or space to not have, that dimension. So it's just it's the lack of dimension. I mean, how do you go about speaking in that light? I think the only thing you can use is the subtle nuance of poetry and these telling of tales and stories.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. When I first came to space, I called myself wind dancer.
I, yeah,
Yeah.
I can see it as a
So,
woman dancer.
but Facebook didn't allow the name. They said it sounded like a porn star's name or something.
Wind dancer is a porn star.
Some people still call me Wind from way back then, but
How long did that go
yeah.
on for?
Oh, Wind Dancer. I can't remember when I had to change it. I don't know.
That's awesome. You do look like a
Yeah.
wind dancer.
Well, I'm an expat dancer, so I like to dance. Yeah. I used to dance with my shadow against like on the Red Canyon walls. So beautiful. Oh,
Oh,
I used to
imagine
love to do that. Yeah.
campfire shadows.
Yeah. Or sunset shadows, the magic
Nice.
hour. Yeah. It's always the magic hour.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Right before the dark, right before the end. It's like the first and last kiss. Always. Not separate. Yeah. Mm-hmm. A continual union of what was never apart, without time or timelessness. Yeah. How many how many billions of ways to sing of this. I don't know, but I'll probably spend my life writing all these books, you know. And at the end of every book, I'm like, oh, I love everything in this book. Did I say what I wanted to say yet? Next day I start out with another poem.
Right. Well, that's what I love. That's what I love about your stuff is that it didn't, it came, or at least within the story, it came post shift, but it just keeps on coming, and that's the funniest thing is it's that, and the shift doesn't stop. It never. It's not like an experience that has happened. It's almost like the positive and negative is just happening. But they just don't happen separately. It's just constantly both and neither, and it's really impossible to say clearly and with any kind of matter of fact common sense. But that's the beauty of it. Those subtle nuances between the lines in your poetry that I found just amazing, and I still read it today. I mean, your last book was incredible, and yeah, I'm gonna go and see if that review cleared.
Oh, thank you for doing that. I've read most of the book on YouTube, although it's like an editing thing, so it doesn't come out the same because I changed some words or there's always typos. And
I'm amazed. Me and Tim were talking about that. How you can how you read your own stuff and narrate. I can't. I mean, it's impossible. I would never be able to do that with any kind of. It's amazing how accurate you are. I don't know how you.
Well, when I'm doing it on YouTube, if I kind of mess up, I slur the words a little bit. I fudge. A lot of people want me to do audiobooks.
Yeah.
But it's too. If I were a millionaire, I would do it. But it's expensive, and if I'm only going to sell five copies, that's not worth it. Yeah, but I would like to, and I'll keep reading. Yeah, and I'd like to, because now I have another 60 pages of a new book I'd like to read, and I'd like to go back and read the first and second one, and because a lot of people like to listen, Yeah, it's fun to do.
Yeah, and I like to see the progression of how of your style, but you are very consistent in that flowing kind of way. It's truly impressive to read. It's one of those things that I would love to have that kind of confidence of flow, because it just seems to just come out. I mean, it seems so seamless to me as I'm reading it. And does it actually come to you that way? Do you just let the pen do the writing, or is it something that you have to work on quite a bit? Do you do a lot of redaction?
No, nah. I might be writing and I'll take the last 3 lines and put them on the top or something, but I don't really edit, and I just write and I just put it all in a book, and a handful of people buy them. But I love writing, and I usually write every morning, and sometimes I have a phrase that will come later in the day and I'll tuck it away until morning. But it's like, that's the time I like. That's why there's probably a lot of morning songs. Well, there's a lot of sunset songs too. Oh well, I guess. But I found an old Zoom meeting and I put it on YouTube. I'll send you the link, and it's me reading mainly from my first 2 books, which I haven't read from much.
Right.
So I'll send you that, because some people were happy to see that. This is like a Zoom meeting from 4 years ago or so. Yeah, because I thought at first all I would do is just do Zoom meetings where I read.
Right.
But the Zoom meetings we have in Rainbows are just lovers getting together, and sometimes we talk about non-duality, and sometimes we talk about what kind of tea we like, or our dogs or cats, or stuff like that. So they're a lot of fun. Yeah.
I love that.
Okay. I love you.
Yeah, I got to start. I got to start my Zoom meeting again, and hold on, because I got to put something up and find out when the best time to have it, when to start it up again. But
Yeah, yeah.
or
Save your
if I should
voice.
even do it, yeah, yeah. I don't even
Yeah.
know if I should. I'll wait and see.
Yeah.
Maybe that other people just uh, because it's not. It wasn't me talking. It was kind of like an open venue for anybody that wanted to talk. So of course I
Yeah.
did, you know. So yeah. So I don't know. I'll put that out there and see if I should even try to
Well,
start
take
another
care of
one.
yourself because a lot of people love you and a lot of people care about you.
Well, I was so I cannot say how touched and how happy I am that so many people were so kind to me during my time of absence. So yeah, it's just one of those things. It appears, I'm at least hoping that there's just a certain amount of discomfort or adjusting that I have to do. Um, but yeah, it's too early to tell. I've only been talking again for 3-4 days, so it's
Well, thank you for taking the time to talk to me.
well, I
I've
had to
enjoyed
talk to
it.
you. I had to. If I screwed myself up, and I had to be silent for another month, I could at least say I had a talk with Nancy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
Sama sama.
yeah, I think it's gonna be fine, and I hope
Okay.
to talk to you again really soon. I love
Okay.
you, babe.
Okay. I love you. Bye.
Love you too. I'll talk to you later. Thank you.
Okay. Bye. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye. Bye.